Hello, my name is Elsa Falkenberger, and I am a Principal Research Associate at the Urban Institute and the Chair of the Community Engaged Methods Group.
And I'm Amelia Coffey. I'm a research associate at the Urban Institute and also a member of the leadership team of the Community Engaged Methods Group.
We are recording this video today to tell you a little bit more about a tool that we have found very useful in our community engaged methods work, which is called Data Walks. We developed this tool several years ago in order to share and discuss data in a very accessible format with community members that were part of a project that we were working on here in Washington, D.C. called the Promoting Adolescent Sexual Health and Safety Program. It was a collaboration with the Benning Terrace Public Housing community, and it's something that we are still working on and a partnership that we still have going on today.
And with that, we can get started.
Great. So as I mentioned, data walks are something that we developed as part of this project with the Benning Terrace community to be able to have a conversation around data that felt like it was not intimidating, that it was accessible, and to really be able to do a needs assessment in a way that incorporated people with lived experience and that centered community members as co-experts in this work, along with researchers who were familiar with data that was available in Washington, D.C. and the neighborhood specifically. And rather than telling you all about it, we are going to play this original video that we developed, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the lessons that we have learned since we first started using Data Walks.
Data Walks, an innovative way to share data with communities. An all too common method of conducting place-based research involves researchers publishing findings based on their own interpretation of the data. This only tells half of the story and can lead policymakers and program administrators to create programs and policies in isolation from the community members they're intended to serve. A lack of involvement from community members and key stakeholders means a lot can be missing from researchers' findings and from programs and policies aimed to helping communities thrive. Here at Urban, we've begun to use various forms of community-based research and participation to improve our data collection methods, analysis, and most importantly, to improve the quality of policy recommendations, program evaluations, and practices. We have 4 overarching goals to help us improve how research is done in and with communities. First, invoke a true partnership between the researchers and the research subjects. Second, use stakeholder feedback from the data to improve our analysis and methods for future data collection. Third, empower stakeholders with useful information about their community. And fourth, inspire collective action around areas of concern to inform better policy and practices. So we created a data walk. But what is a data walk? A data walk is a convening geared towards community stakeholders like residents, service providers, policymakers, and researchers to review community data and research findings in an accessible and meaningful way. The idea is to create a user-friendly experience where all stakeholders can share, analyze, and make use of data jointly. The goal is to empower stakeholders so that they are involved in key decisions regarding policy creation and program administration. Like we mentioned, we use the data walk to bring our research findings to community stakeholders, hear their feedback, and use it. Here is one example of how a data walk helped researchers at the Urban Institute improve data analysis, inform better services, and empower community residents. Data walk participants in one of our host sites had strong reactions to posters showing survey data about the number of adults who struggled to put and keep food on the table for themselves and their families. You see that poster here. We heard from data walk participants that the survey numbers looked too low. They felt that some families and children were too nervous to admit to having such struggles and underreported their actual level of need. Hearing this from other residents and peers, participants felt that they were able to reach out to the on-site service provider participating in the data walk about receiving SNAP or better access to a local food pantry. One service provider spoke to a community member about their struggles immediately following the data walk to determine how they could improve their support to families. The service provider was also able to use this feedback to adjust the content and delivery of the supportive services they offer. The data walk discussion also led to follow-on work by the Urban Institute to delve further into the issue of food insecurity, working side by side with community-based organizations and community members to develop approaches to address teen food insecurity in particular. You'll need more than just data for your data walk. Here's a list of some of the most important things you will need when planning your event. First, a comprehensive list of people to invite. Think about asking local community-based organizations and community leaders to help get the word out and help you find food, childcare, and a translator if multiple languages are spoken in your community so all participants can engage fully. Second, accurate data that is easy to read and understand in graphs, charts, and text, and an explanation of where that data comes from. And third, a good team to facilitate discussion at each of the data displays and discussions you may have after the data walk. Do you want to learn more about data walks and possibly organize a data walk of your own? Building a data walk can be an intricate process, and we want to be sure that you have the tools to execute your data walk successfully. Click the link on this slide for our new guidebook on how to build a data walk. If you have more questions or comments, you can contact Elsa Falkenberger, one of the team members who helped build the data walk.
So now that you've heard a little bit about data walks, we're going to transition and just say that it's been several years since we put together that video that you just saw and the accompanying brief, and we've gained lots of great experience applying this approach in many real-world settings. And so the rest of this presentation will focus on strategies to make data walks more accessible, engaging, and yielding of authentic feedback. And we will provide key takeaways on what we've learned in the following areas: virtual data walk approaches, interactive station options, creating safe spaces for participants, recruitment strategies, and working towards accessibility. And since the pandemic began, we've had to adapt data walks to virtual platforms and engagement strategies, and video conferencing platforms to use to facilitate data walks has become our norm since the onset of COVID-19. Video conferencing presents challenges to forging connections with participants as well as to smooth facilitation, but we've found many effective strategies to overcome this, including knowing the interface you're using to video conference very well so you can smoothly start the meeting, let participants in, navigate slides, navigate interactive platforms that you might be using, etc. We suggest doing at least one full run of show prior to the data walk and any necessary troubleshooting. We suggest keeping groups small so you can connect with and encourage feedback from all participants, and to make participant technology issues easier to troubleshoot. We found that no more than 6 participants is best when holding a single discussion with all participants. And for larger numbers, we suggest you consider holding multiple data walks if possible, or using breakout rooms so that it's manageable for a facilitator to get everyone involved in this discussion. We suggest that you have at least 2 to 3 facilitators of the virtual data walk. For example, 1 lead facilitator, 1 note taker, and 1 person running interactive platforms. We suggest that it's important to be cognizant of the comfort of participants, talk to an intermediary that you may be working with to organize the event about what the participants may be comfortable with when it comes to the technology platform. We suggest sending plain language instructions for how to log in and navigate the platform, including perhaps using screenshots in your explanations for more accessibility. We suggest thinking through really carefully what the session will look like if not everyone has their camera on, and how to really proactively engage everyone you can't see on camera, including asking people to take turns and calling on people with their cameras off. So of course, making clear that their input is voluntary and you just want to make sure that they're able to break into the conversation. We also think it's important to point out that in addition to challenges, we've heard from numerous data walk participants and recruitment partners that the virtual platform does offer opportunities for participants with lack of time, transportation barriers, disabilities, and other factors that may prevent them from otherwise taking place in a data walk to take part, which is really great. And now also we'll talk a little bit about some additional virtual and interactive approaches to data walk.
So to give you a couple examples of concrete ways that you can make a virtual data walk happen outside of just using a conference platform, a few of the things that we've done is go to social media. A lot of people use this for outreach and engagement in general, and so it makes sense to take the data walks to where people are already at. So one strategy or approach that we've used is through Facebook. We've done this both on open platforms, but mostly on closed groups, particularly if you're discussing data that might have some privacy concerns or confidentiality needs. So the way that I won't go into the technicalities of how to make this work, but you can use the Facebook event feature and plan an event that would be for a closed Facebook group, or you can do it for anybody who is connected to that account. And one of the great benefits of doing it this way is that you can post data and images and invite people into a discussion that would happen at a specific time, or it can take place over several days or a week or more, as long as you want to have it open. And then people can kind of come in and engage with the content at their discretion and when they're available. And you can do things to kind of drive traffic to the presentation over time by having something like posting a question of the day or posting, asking people to cross-post on their Facebook pages in order to reach a wider audience. This also works really well with Instagram, and also Instagram tends to reach a slightly younger population. We have not yet used TikTok or any others to really reach the younger audiences, but on Instagram, it's been a really great way to share things that offer a lot of visuals, and to be able to use the stories feature at the top so that you, especially if you're doing a data walk over a series of days or weeks, you're able to add new content and people can see it all at once, or they can just see the new content that you've put up that day. People are able to then either comment, this is on Facebook or Instagram, either publicly in the comments section, or if you want to offer people the opportunity or require it, people can send their comments, which can be just reflections on the post, the data and information or images that you're posting, or answers to specific questions that you're asking people. And they can send that through direct messages to maintain their privacy and still offer you their input there. So on this next slide, you'll see another approach is we've been using Google Jamboards a lot. The Jamboard is a Google tool. I won't tell you how to get there, but if you Google it, it will give you instructions on how you're able to access it through the tools that they offer. It's a cloud-based whiteboarding app. It's part of the Google Suite, so you should have access to it if you have an account. And it's used to collaborate and automatically save work in what they call jam sessions. So each participant that comes in, you create a Jamboard and you can have a link. The link can be given to people and they're only viewing participants, or they can be contributors, so then they have editing access. So if you create a link that provides everybody with editing access, you can then give that link out if you are on a Zoom or Microsoft Teams event, or if you want to share it out through email. People have access to this link and can come to this platform where you can have multiple boards, kind of like tabs in Excel, and you can pose a variety of different questions that you can facilitate live or put up for people to do when they're available. And as you can see here from the image on the slide, people can then pick a Post-it note and add their comments on there and post it. And one of the really wonderful things is that it automatically assigns people funny animal names to ensure everybody remains anonymous. And we found that this is helpful even when people are participating in their own professional capacity. Sometimes you might be talking about something that might be, you know, criticizing something about your organization, or just thinking critically about something and wanting to offer your thoughts really honestly. And so that anonymous option allows people to either share really openly about a difficult topic, or also just think a little bit less about how smart they sound when they're writing something down. People are much more willing to just jot something down and put a Post-it on there when it's anonymous. And what's really great is we've used this at the end of many data walks. When we're in person, we tend to do visioning statements or visioning station, where people get to talk about what next, what do you propose, what do you commit to next. And so we've used the Jamboards at the end of some virtual data walks, or just in general in other engagements that we've done online, to ask people, you know, go ahead, take a Post-it note and let us know what you learned today, or even better, let us know how you're going to apply what you've learned today to your work. How are you going to make this concrete for what you do on a daily basis? And then one third concrete set of recommendations or tools that you could use is how to make the different stations that are part of a data walk as interactive as possible. So beyond just the third bullet point here, which is ending with a visioning exercise, as I just mentioned, a couple of other things that we've done is include a mapping exercise. So if some of the work that you're doing is really place-based or has a specific defined geography, offering a map of that location and asking the participants to tell you about their own community, which is a really important part of data walks that I've come to learn and really appreciate, is ensuring that the researchers are not, or those who are presenting the data or organizing the data walk, are not always the people who are in the position of being the experts, or those who are sharing information. And so the mapping exercise allows community members to really map out different things that are important to them in their neighborhood, or that they think you should know about, as you're trying to capture a really comprehensive understanding of their neighborhood or their state or whatever the geography might be. And then a second part that allows for some interaction and also puts community members or the participants in the driver's seat is to ask people ahead of time to contribute a photo, or the organizing entity, you know, whether it's a community-based organization or a local government office, to offer up some photos that might be of a really important resource, whether it's a hospital in their neighborhood, a local park. In this case, this is a picture from my own community of a mural that was put up several months ago that says "Community Everything," which I think says it all, and allows the participants to then really, again, tell you about their community and about why something is important or problematic, or why it's something that they feel anybody should really consider when understanding the topic that's at hand.
Thanks, Elsa. And so in addition, we have really heard and thought a lot about, I think over the years of doing all these data walks, about how important it is to ensure participants feel comfortable sharing authentic feedback, and how that is really something that takes a lot of intention, and there are some specific strategies we've found are particularly helpful for doing that. And one of those is to hold separate data walks for those most affected by the programs and policies that might be under study, or those who are most connected to the community that we're seeking feedback from, rather than others who may be sort of the more historical holders of power in the community, or who may have power over the lives of those participants. And there's been some debate among data walk facilitators in the past about the pros and cons of having mixed groups of stakeholders attend data walks. For example, Some folks have felt that having mixed groups gives the opportunity for stakeholders to share ideas. But what we've really found is that those most personally affected often kind of feel like they're not really comfortable giving authentic feedback when certain authority figures are in the room, and this can kind of lead to them shutting down. And then we've also found that it's really important to shift power from professional researchers to community residents. And for example, that can include really being upfront about how we feel that you are the experts, you, the community members, not us. And we found that not saying that upfront and sort of getting that message across may lead to substantial confirmation bias towards affirming researchers' findings. And part of that shifting of power may involve having local researchers and or culturally competent researchers who reflect the community facilitate the data walk stations. And we know that this is often in tension with the structures of professional research teams, but we found it to be really important in practice. And then on the topic of recruitment strategies, just as making participants feel comfortable sharing feedback doesn't happen without intention, so too, getting participants with diverse perspectives also won't happen without intention. And you know, communities have political dynamics, and some voices often speak loudest within the community. And when it comes to program participants, intermediaries who are program staff may have an incentive to direct participants to program, to direct researchers to program participants who have positive experiences with the program or have particularly strong ties to staff, and those folks may not be very representative of sort of the wider group that may be trying to engage in the data walk. And while it's important to work with trusted intermediaries to reach community members, it's also important to talk to those intermediaries about who they feel can represent, you know, who they feel they can represent, and the importance of getting diverse voices, and also to work through who, in addition, it might be important to work with, and think about different avenues for getting different people involved. Some of what Elsa talked about with reaching out on social media can be important for recruiting youth. Using snowballing, meaning asking people you recruit to bring others along, depending on how specific your recruitment criteria are, can be helpful. And offering incentives also helps reach people who may not otherwise be able to attend. It's important to remember that whole sort of important point of the data walks is to use them as an opportunity to reach people oftentimes whose voices wouldn't otherwise be heard in conversations. And so thinking about how to do this is a really important piece of the puzzle. And it's also important to acknowledge in any data walk summary or any product that uses data walk feedback, the limitation that these groups won't be perfectly representative of all perspectives, and some will inevitably be left out.
Just a few additional thoughts that are relevant for recruitment is obviously thinking about accessibility. This is something that we covered in the original data walk brief and a little bit in the video, but really wanting to end here today by saying, think through all of the elements that are going to make your data walk as accessible as possible to as many of the people as you're trying to reach as possible. So reiterating how important location, time, and logistics can be. So if people don't have a form of transportation to get to where your data walk is taking place, if it is in person, you might be planning something in a professional capacity and your hours might be 9 to 5, but participants might not be. And so ensuring that that time can be outside of sometimes traditional working hours, or offering a variety of different times, understanding that people have different working hours. and also just the logistics that are used to put things into place. So things like childcare, providing food. If you can help people meet other needs that they have, it's going to make it that much more accessible to them. Second, this one doesn't always come as naturally, but thinking about offering paper copies or electronic handouts as follow-up so that people feel that, or so that people can really own the information that is shared with them that day. We've had a few data walks where we didn't have enough of the hard copies to hand out, and it really did make the people who didn't get the hard copies that day feel that they were not as empowered, that they weren't as important. And so just really, because they knew that people, that information is power, and that the people who had access to that were going to be able to do other things with that information and connection to Urban Institute and the work that we've been doing, and take it elsewhere. So that's a really important piece as well. Content and language. So making sure that that everything that you present is really understandable, that it is using language that people identify with. So I don't mean, you know, 3rd grade versus 8th grade reading level, just meaning using the terminology that's going to be most familiar to people, and using examples that is really going to resonate and feel also appropriate to people who are participating. And then the last is thinking about virtual platforms carefully. You know, we provided a variety of different examples today of different virtual platforms that you can use. And certainly we have seen tremendous participation using these virtual platforms. We can reach more people. It can be easier for people because people can be multitasking while they're doing them. But also recognizing that not all virtual platforms are easy to use, familiar, or accessible to all participants. So you might be leaving some people out actually by conducting one of your data walks virtually. So just a few extra things to keep in mind. Amelia?
Yeah, and in conclusion, this work takes time and intentionality to do well. And we're quite sure that successful strategies will continue to emerge as we learn more and do more in the field. Thank you for listening. And the brief and video that we played earlier in the presentation are available at this link. And we're happy to have you contact us. Thank you.